growth is change and change is growth. With any business, any law firm, over the years, you're going to evolve. How you started, on day one, and what the firm looked like then is going to be very different than perhaps what the firm looks like now, and perhaps what the firm will look like 10 years from now. And hopefully you're learning things, and hopefully you're evolving and improving, but not everybody evolves and improves. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, Head of Coaching Strategy at Crisp, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on why the best leaders cultivate a team of empowered individuals, how to strike the balance between a supportive and results-driven culture, and how to deliver constructive feedback with team morale in mind.
I have conversations all the time about, look guys, we need to get better at customer service and client experience. We need to improve our intake. We need to become better marketers. We need to become better trial attorneys. Like, those things need to happen. And if those things don't happen, unfortunately, I can't guarantee that we're going to have a place for people that don't level up with the organization. And it's not anything personal. It's just more so the fact that we all need to get better.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. Here we are. Welcome back to another AMMA.
We are back for another one. And I was just thinking, Jessica, before we got started, now this podcast has perfect 2020 vision.
It does. 2015, actually.
2015, because a few weeks ago, I got LASIK eye surgery. And then just this past week, we returned. I referred a client to them, you, and then you got your LASIK done. And now you can see. Isn't it incredible?
Yeah. The only difference is that you watched the entire procedure and you were just fine.
It's incredible. I will say that now in hindsight, looking at it, I think that depending on wherever you get your LASIK done or wherever you get this procedure done, some doctors allow you to be in there to support whoever it is you're going with, right? So when I got my LASIK surgery done, you were able to come into the OR with me and you can hold my hand and it's supposed to make me feel more comfortable. And then you can look on the screen to watch the actual surgery itself. Now, I thought this was awesome, but the difference is that I got to see the surgery after having the surgery versus you seeing it before having yours, and probably would not recommend watching a surgery that you're going to have in a few weeks.
They actually told me that they would not have let me in with you had they known mine was so soon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we got 2015, 2020. We're doing great over here.
Exactly. It's incredible. Like, what does this have to do with the AMMA? Well, you got to have that 2020 vision for your law firm, and you got to be able to look ahead into the distance and see what's coming. I don't even know what the questions are this time around, but if you're just tuning in for the very first time, this is our most popular podcast segment. This blows my mind. Like, we brought on incredible guests. Like, we've had David Goggins and John Maxwell, Mark Lanier, like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet somehow these AMMAs have become our most popular segments. Who would have thought? We still will do the interview formats, but we do actually do 3 types of podcasts on this podcast. We've got our guests that we bring on. So experts, best-selling authors, incredible trial attorneys, elite athletes, etc. We pick their brains, and that's the traditional podcast format. Then we've got our encore editions. We bring back some of our most popular episodes. And then the third type is this, the AMMA. You guys submit your questions. You text us at 404-531-7691, and we compile all these questions. We try to keep them on theme, right? Because we get thousands of these now. And we answer your questions here live on the podcast. I never know what the questions are before answering the questions. I think is exciting because I can give a really stupid answer. Maybe, or maybe it's something somebody enjoys. So with that, Jessica, what do we got today?
All right. Keeps you on your toes here. First question today, thinking about leadership and standards. So recently, we've been discussing elevating a manager to a more senior role within the firm. However, they seem hesitant to let go of their current responsibilities. How do you empower a manager to take on elevated responsibilities when they struggle to delegate existing tasks effectively?
I sometimes wonder what people think leadership is. I see some people in certain roles and they say, well, I get a lot of things done and I'm really, really effective. And I started off as an individual contributor. And now I want, title manager, I want leader, or I want VP, or whatever. And they think that they get that title or they get that accountability simply because they've either been there a long time or they got really good at what they're doing. But that's not really what leadership is. Leadership is about intentional influence. It is about your ability to drive results through other people. You see, if everybody that you would hire in non-leadership roles just got everything done and did everything that they were supposed to do, well, then you wouldn't need leaders. So what is the purpose of a leader? It is to exercise leverage. At its core, it is the ability to take, let's say you jump into a team, the performance is at a certain level, and through your influence, that performance goes up. That is effective leadership. But what did you actually do there for the performance to go up? And it could be how you got everybody to work together and collaborate, a new process or system that you put in place, like a new methodology, a new approach, greater standards of accountability, standards of measurement and KPIs, et cetera. It could be all sorts of different things. It could be a combination, it could be all of those things. And your effectiveness as a leader is tied to the results and the output of said team. However, if you are one of these people that struggles to delegate effectively, well, then it's going to limit a lot of your career growth and trajectory, especially as a leader, because you can't get to the next level until you have cleared the first one. It's like, I can't give you more to do if you're already at capacity doing everything. You're already working 80 hours a week. So it's like, how can I give you more accountability? I can't give you more accountability. Like, we can't put more on until things come off. And things can't come off if you can't delegate effectively. I've seen leaders all the time say, hey, yeah, I signed all these things to all these people. I'm ready for my new role. But then that shit ain't getting done. So it's like, well, how did you delegate? Because the best leaders, the best ones are constantly looking for ways in which they can empower their team and be able to shed all of the doing that they're responsible for every single day. Like the actual tasky work, things that they're working on in the business. They want to empower other people to do that, because then it creates more and more capacity for you as the leader to be able to make a greater impact. Your value as a leader is not really in so much of like what you get done, but in your ability to ensure that other people are able to get things done effectively. That's kind of how you go all the way up to CEO. I pretty much don't do anything. But if my aim is to be effective, a lot of other people are doing things very, 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 very effectively to allow me to sit here and record this podcast. Because I couldn't sit here and record this podcast if emails weren't being responded to, payroll wasn't being run, like people weren't being managed, data and reporting, wasn't being tracked. Like there wasn't analytics taking place. Like if all these things in the business, like interactions with our clients, like calls, sales, marketing, campaigns, et cetera, if all those things weren't being done, what the hell would I be doing here sitting recording this podcast? It'd be silly. If all those things were relying solely on me, well then I could never do things like this. So I think the takeaway here is that this leader, in order to advance, needs to be able to gain the skill to be able to delegate effectively. And they can only do that if they're setting up others for success, to where, I think the most effective leaders are constantly putting themselves in a role where it's like, well, you're not going to need me for this. You're not going to need me for this. You're not going to need me for this. Some leaders look at that and say, well, but if they're not going to need me, well, then they're just going to let me go. And it's like, wrong. They're going to give you more opportunity because more is getting done. But if you hold on to everything and you're the only one who knows how to do something, and where are all the processes? Oh, they're in your brain, huh? And you think that makes you so valuable because now you think they can't let you go because you're the only one who knows how to do it.
They'll find a way.
There are graveyards full of irreplaceable people. Everybody is replaceable. The only thing you're doing is you're limiting your own trajectory because you're holding on to things, and they're not going to give you more because they're just going to keep you right where you are.
Yeah, and I will say even leaders, one comes to mind here who's grown through the years. She historically had carried everything on her back and was like, you know what, I'm going to swoop in and save the day so the team hits the target this month. And she's done this in multiple positions. Last month at all hands meeting, she's like, my goal this month is to be at 0. And my goal this month is for this entire team to hit it with me staying at 0. That is growing in leadership.
Yeah. It's not how much you do, it's how much gets done.
Yes.
All right.
Moving on to the next one. So I have noticed that as we transition from a more relaxed leadership style to one focused on driving results, some team members are struggling to adapt. One of my leaders knows how to get things done efficiently, but they seem to be clashing with the firm's culture of collaboration and empathy. How do you strike the balance between maintaining a supportive culture and ensuring tasks are completed efficiently?
Is the implication that these are two separate things? So like a supportive culture is at odds with things being completed efficiently? To me, they're one and the same. And I don't look at these as diverging factors, right? Like we are supportive of one another, but we live in the results economy, not the time and effort economy. Things have to get done. I'm still unclear as to what the question is. Like they've got somebody there who
sounds like this
gets
person
things
can just
done,
run,
but can be a bit of a disruptor.
Correct. Maybe is not a team player. Maybe doesn't play nice with others.
Well, then what are they really getting done, right? And what is our measure on what their output and performance is? If they're solely responsible for things that they need to do and it doesn't influence anybody else, then put them in a padded room, right? And turn off the lights. Let them do whatever they need to do. Like keep them away from other human beings. That being said, if the success of the organization is reliant upon this person collaborating with other people, well, then their inability to do so is going to limit the success of the organization. And guess what? It turns out the success of the organization is more important than any one individual person, including you, including me. You as the listener, you as the CEO, you as the leader, like, et cetera. Like, it's a team game. Business is a team sport. So if someone cannot collaborate and work well with other people, I mean, we've had people that have been incredible performers, like incredible, like putting up Michael Jordan numbers, putting up Kobe numbers, putting up Wayne Gretzky numbers. And yet they could not work well with others. They could not collaborate. And the single best decision we ever made was parting ways with them. And guess what happened? The culture improved, the team aligned. And it's like the organization is more than the sum of its individual parts. And you have to look at it as, you know, as an organization scales, let's say you have like two people, right? You've got one great performer, one poor performer. They can't work together, but kind of like 1 + 1, you know, at the current state, it doesn't equal 3. But let's say you've got 30 people. And you've got 30 people, but you've got one person who is just a terrible culture fit that brings down the organization, like efficiency. Like they create drag in the organization. They create a lot of emotional waste. They create a lot of drama. They create a lot of setbacks. No matter how good their individual performance is, over time, that's not going to outweigh the impact they're making in the organization, like the negative impact. Like we have this tool, we call it the cost benefit analyzer. When we look at it, and Jessica, you can probably speak to it more. In fact, why don't you?
All right. It's literally what it says, cost and benefit. But I think oftentimes we evaluate team members on how well they're doing. So it's on the scale of how much are they adding versus looking at what cost are they adding those things. And so when we look at this tool, it's really like, what is the difference? Is the positive neck and neck with the negative? And the negative could be anything from like, is this person a drain on you? Are they infectious to other people in a negative way? Are they putting you at risk with your clients? And it's things like that those actually will cancel out the positives. And I think we so often overlook the negative side. So it's really saying, what is the cost and the benefit of having this person here? And is it worth it?
I know some people are thinking, easy for you to say, like, this person's my primary producer. And if I were to part ways with them, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to bring in, revenue? We're relying on them. How are we going to make it happen? I've been in that exact situation multiple times. Just you and I have been there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You got to commit.
Like, here's the thing. If you keep these people around and this person, you're trading your short-term performance for the long term. Because you're saying, oh, I need this right now. But the negative impact that person's making is killing your culture. And maybe it's creating a situation where nobody wants to work there, period. And maybe they don't trust you. Let's say you get a little bit of cash now, you stay afloat. But then what? What happens 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now? Hopefully you've got a long-term vision in place where 3 to 5 years, maybe even 10 years out, you want to be doing a heck of a lot better than you're doing right now. But that's never going to happen so long as you got these anchors on board.
Oh yeah, I have one coaching client in mind right now. I won't say his name, but I remember at a workshop several years ago, one of his wins was actually terminating someone who had been with him for over a decade. In the midst of all of that, he's like, the team has never been better. Like after all of that happened. And he actually came to me at the last workshop and he's like, I was in a breakout and someone's got to terminate. He's like, all I said was just listen to Jessica, just do it. He's like, I don't regret that at all. So hopefully you can turn the person around. In this case, if they're very efficient, they're a high producer, whatever, it's very difficult to change people. But yes, being a team player is a non-negotiable for us.
Well, yeah. And I would also say that if you sit down with this person, you can clearly articulate, well, here's the challenge that I'm having. You're a great producer and you're a great performer. However, the team fucking hates you. Okay? I'm just kidding.
Maybe not in those words.
Maybe not going to put it that way, but I would also relate it to them. They're limiting their own growth through their inability to collaborate with others. So meaning that if they can work well with others, like you can, catch more flies with honey, that sort of thing, they're not going to have to do it all. It's not going to have to all be on their back. Perhaps other people are going to be willing to step in and help them and support them. And you can always achieve more through collaboration than you can individually or independently. Like always. Like if you have people working well together, if you're working well with people, you can achieve way more than you ever could playing a solo game. Maybe they're going to say, you know what, you're right. I'm going to work on my collaboration skills. I'm being less of a jerk. I don't know the exact situation that's happening here.
If I lead with optimism, maybe this person doesn't realize how they're coming across.
That could be true as well. I think start there.
Yeah.
Hey, clarity is kindness.
Yes.
Make sure that you're clear up front.
Yeah.
But in the event that they say, you know what, I want to be the way that I am. It's their problem how they respond. That's, that sort of thing, that kind of ego, the ego kicks in. Well, I'll tell you this, and I'll leave you with this. Culture is not defined by who you hire. It is defined by who you fire.
It's who you tolerate. That is true. All right, to round us out today, so we have a team member who has been a consistent performer for years, but as our standards have evolved with the growth of the firm, their performance has fallen slightly below our now high expectations. How do you navigate communicating a below average performance review to a long-term team member while maintaining morale and motivation? It's almost the opposite.
Yeah. So you've had someone who's been with you a long time. They've been a great performer. You've raised the standard. Now what was great is no longer the same. You leveled up and they have not leveled up. So this is not uncommon as a part of a growing organization. What the challenge that I see is most organizations keep these people around. And as a result, the organization is never able to truly level up. Growth is change and change is growth. With any business, any law firm, over the years, you're going to evolve. How you started, on day one, and what the firm looked like then is going to be very different than perhaps what the firm looks like now and perhaps what the firm will look like 10 years from now. And hopefully you're learning things and hopefully you're evolving and improving. But not everybody evolves and improves. Now, I think it should be an aim of every organization to have a culture of growth and a culture of learning and evolution because, it's like one of our core values is better than yesterday. And it's realizing that we should always be learning. Your learning didn't stop in college or it didn't stop in law school and it didn't stop in grad school. Like that's silly. Like things change all the time. We should constantly be learning and improving and developing as leaders. But for those that don't do those things, you're going to come to a point where their skill set is out of date and at odds with what the organization needs today. In fact, Netflix is notorious for this. Like, super high growth business, especially, years ago when they started, they're like, man, how is Netflix growing so quickly? And in the book they published, Reed Hastings published like the No Rules Rules. He talks about the fact that because of the pace of innovation and growth at Netflix, it is not uncommon for them to have, to have to sit down with whether it's, subject matter experts or leaders or managers, whoever, after they've been at the organization for 5 years and 10 years and meet with them and say, hey, unfortunately we have to part ways because your skills no longer align with the needs of the organization today. It's not done in a malicious way. It's not done in a negative way. It's just saying like, hey, this is what we need today, and this is what we need where we're going into the future. The skill set that you've had has been great. It's gotten us to this point, and we appreciate it, and we're grateful for it, but it's just not what we need going forward. And again, you don't want to surprise someone with that. You have conversations all the time about, look, guys, we need to get better at customer service and client experience. We need to improve our intake. We need to become better marketers. We need to become better trial attorneys. Like, those things need to happen. And if those things don't happen, unfortunately, I can't guarantee that we're going to have a place for people that don't level up with the organization. And it's not anything personal. It's just more so the fact that we all need to get better. We can make a greater impact for our clients. We can make a greater impact in our communities. We can be more successful personally, support our families. And that's going to make an impact organization-wide. But I said with an earlier question, is like, if you have too many anchors, it's like the standard never truly gets raised.
Yeah. And, we reference Cy Wakeman so much, but I think in both of these scenarios, one of her approaches is like knowing that this is the reality, knowing that this is the standard, whether it's to be a team player or an elevated standard. What is your plan to get on board?
Yeah.
That's it. Like, do you have a plan? Are you going to get on board? Because if you don't, maybe this isn't the place for you.
I know we were talking about this. We went on a walk yesterday and I was like, the thing I love about the NFL is that it's like the ultimate meritocracy. It's like, look, it doesn't matter how much they're paying you, what your last contract was, what school you came out of, whether you won a Heisman. When you're getting into training camp and they're valuing your skill set and they're determining whether you're going to be on the starting roster, it is purely based on your skill and your ability to help that team win. It doesn't matter who you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even a season ago. And this is what they say, look, the NFL is a business. So when they say the NFL is a business, why don't we treat our businesses like businesses? So many of you are running your organizations like a family rather than a professional sports team. And I'll tell you, everybody says they want to have a high-performing team and they want to be able to hit these goals and these targets and make this great impact. And then they're unwilling to make the decisions necessary to lead a high-performing team, which is setting a standard and reinforcing a standard. And guess what? High performers absolutely love that. They love to be on a type of team like that where there's a high standard and you're going for championships and you can play ball at a high level and you're doing great work that's mentally challenging for them and it's stimulating and it's engaging. They're taking on very challenging cases. Every year the firm is growing and evolving and creates new opportunities for them. Like, that's exciting for a high performer, but it makes a low performer very uncomfortable because they're looking at it and they're saying, look, but I've been here for 10 years, 15 years, maybe 20 years, but I don't know how to use an iPad. I don't know, little kids know how to use iPads, so maybe you can figure it out. They're like, I don't know about this AI stuff, or I don't know about our case management platform. I just don't understand how to click around in there. I don't understand how to scan documents. You better get to learning, because you can't say that just because you don't know how to do something, well, look, but the organization needs you to know how to do this, and the organization needs you to be able to learn. So you can't just say like, look, my lack of knowledge is somehow some excuse that prevents me from basically taking part in the necessary needs of the firm. It's silly. The more and more I think about this, it's just silly. Like, maybe there was a point in society where you learned certain skills, and then those skills would guide you through the rest of your life because nothing would change. But as we've seen things evolve with evolution in technology, in many cases you're finding that like what kids are being taught in school doesn't even represent what the jobs are going to be once they graduate. So the onus is on the individual to develop their skills and constantly be learning and evolving so that they are prepared for what's coming next. If you don't do this, you're going to be in a world of pain. Like, it's not organization specific. It's the needs of the market. When somebody is outdated and they don't know, like they don't have the skills that organizations need, like there's just not a place for them. And this is where, like, maybe there's a case for universal base income. People can just sit at home and get kind of a monthly check, and we keep, give them their Netflix and just keep them okay, keep them satiated. But in a competitive market where you've got other businesses growing and learning and improving, you're competing against law firms that are also improving. If you fail to develop your team and your organization and your people, well, life's going to be very, very difficult. I don't see any other option.
No, I agree.
There you go. Now we can end it.
All right, that's it.
All right. See you guys.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at gamechangingattorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.